Join me today as we talk about X-Men 97, Episode 9, Tolerance is Extinction, Part 2, which is Part 2 of the three-part season finale. Welcome to the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bobby, and today we're going to be talking about X-Men 97, Episode 9, Tolerance is Extinction, Part 2. Now, this episode of the show here is running a little late. The final episode, Episode 10, has already premiered, and I watched it really early this morning. So, as soon as I'm done filming this, I'm going to film Episode 10. The show about Episode 10. I haven't had 10 episodes of these because I did condense them, but I want to talk about the two episodes separately. I just didn't get around to recording this for Episode 9. So for those of you who are watching this relatively contemporary to when I release them, I'm probably going to release these like one right after the other. Might not even wait a day because, well, it's YouTube. Got to strike while the iron's hot, talking about Episode 10. Now, I'll probably wait a little while and do like a overview of the whole season episode. So, if you want to wait for that, go right ahead. Going to talk about some things, some overarching themes that occurred throughout the whole thing. Now that we can sit back and see it in its entirety. But that'll be at least a week away, maybe two. So anyway, episode 9. So we follow the end of episode 8, where Magneto decided to basically shut down the planet, and we find out that he's done more than just like use an electromagnetic pulse. Like, he's really like screwed up the Earth's magnetic field, and in a matter of hours, either the field is going to collapse or like technology will be beyond recoverable. They interchangeably say a few things, but it's going to get really bad, okay? Now, so Magneto decides that it's time to go resurrect the old Asteroid M plot. So he gets the old Asteroid M going. Xavier wakes up there in the mansion because he showed back up at the very end of the last episode. The power's out, so he's got to use a regular wheelchair now. And he and Scott have it out, because Scott asks the question that everyone's wondering, like, why the hell did you leave everything to Magneto? We have pretty clear evidence that he is the villain here, or a villain. So Xavier tries to explain it, saying that, he wanted Cyclops and Jean to be able to walk away because they dedicated their lives up to that point to the cause, and, he wanted them to walk away, but it's one of those, yeah, do you really think Cyclops is just going to leave with Magneto in charge? And if he does, he's just going to get sucked back into it eventually anyway. So, and Cyclops definitely gives him the cold shoulder whenever Xavier, puts his hand out, try to, make amends. Cyclops just blows right past him. Yeah, so Forge and Storm show up. They rescue Jubilee and Sunspot from a mob of people. They see that Forge's cybernetics are still functional, and he explains that he built in a protection against EM effects a long time ago. So they realize this is the beginning of some realizations about Bastion. And I think for all intents and purposes, Bastion is a mutant. Just not with the X Factor gene, but he is a mutant. In the traditional sense of he's a mutated human. Again, just not with the X Factor gene, I don't think. Because as we saw in the episode prior to this, his origin is different. He is not Nimrod and Master Mold combined and sent through the Siege Perilous. He was born this way, as to a human parents. It's just one of them had been infected by the remains of Nimrod from the, I think it's One Man's Worth is the name of the episode, where Nimrod and Fitzroy go back in time and try to kill Xavier. So, it, and I think in episode 8, or maybe it's here in 9, he literally says, I was born this way. And he just takes the X-Men's whole, like, their whole deal, where, they're like, hey, don't come after us, we can't help it, we were born this way. And he's just like, he just throws it right back at him, like, well, so was I. So now what? And having already seen episode 10, that's going to come into play a little bit more towards the end. So Xavier mentions that he actually went to go see Bastion's mother to try to recruit him because Cerebro detected him, because he was a technopath. He can hear and talk to machines. So, and Storm, mentions that, had things gone differently, Bastion might be one of the founding members of the team. But the moment his mom heard the word mutant, she slammed the door in Xavier's face, and that was that. And then we also see part of the human side of Bastion whenever he picks up his mother, who was, who he did turn into a Prime Sentinel, so, but he picks her up, because she got fried by the EM pulse, and it's clear that he cares for her, and even tells her, like, there's that moment, because you see in the flashbacks of him growing up, he can hear all the machines, and he whispers to her, it's finally quiet, because all the machines have been shut down. And so that's just one of the little things that they did to really try to, I think, to humanize Bastion, to make him more than just a cartoon, pardon the pun there, villain. And I think it really works. He's still clearly the villain, but there's definitely complexity there, and there's some things that you can't just ignore. Like, the X-Men's whole argument is, they were born that way. Well, so was Bastion. Like, he's not that different from them. And yet, they will forever be at odds because of the differences, because he is a Sentinel, essentially. And that makes for an interesting villain. And an interesting moral dilemma for the X-Men. Like, you can't sit there and say that you want certain things, and then you're presented with that situation and be like, yeah, but not this guy, screw him. And this comes back a lot in episode 10. So anyway, Cable's back there. He's kind of, he doesn't view Jean as his mother, even though she's, Madeline is her clone and everything. He's technically correct. But they try to explain to him, like, family can also be a choice. So Magneto shows up with Asteroid M at Xavier's mansion, and he's like, well, I'm going to space. Anyone wants to come join me and not die, come along. So Rogue leaves, and so does Sunspot. Now that second one really pisses off Jubilee. But Rogue, she's still heartbroken over Gambit dying, Xavier leaving, and all that. She views all this as Xavier's fault. And, Magneto's got a hell of a speech there where, basically he's like, this is all Xavier's fault. This is all of his machinations, come back to bite you in the ass. And how many more of you are going to have to die to try to fulfill his dream? So they leave. Then the X-Men come up with a plan to stop Bastion, because like, well, his powers essentially work like ours. We can maybe just use the scrambler that they built to use against Jean whenever she was the Phoenix. They talk about trying to use the neutralizer technology, and Storm puts it into that discussion real quick. So they're going with the scrambler. And so half the team is going after Bastion, and the other half of the team is going into space. And so the space team is Nightcrawler, Cyclops, Xavier, and Wolverine. And then the other is everyone else. Oh, Jubilee went into space. Sorry. And so then it's Storm, Forge, Jean, and Cable. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. And Morph, who go to deal with Bastion. So they head out there. Well, as they get close, Bastion uses his powers and is able to turn on a whole bunch of Sentinels and send them after them. Storm wrecks a whole bunch of them with her weather powers, mainly a tornado. Jean starts fighting Mr. Sinister, and he activates a thing that he implanted in Cable, so Cable starts attacking Jean, and Cable just, just lays into her, because he's like, yeah, Mom was a world-class telekinetic, and he's like, things like that tend to not skip a generation, and so he starts using his powers against her. She contacts Scott. Up in space, Xavier talks to President Kelly, and it's like, hey, we need some time to deal with this, but the clock's ticking, the world's going to end. And President Kelly's like, well, we have the Magneto protocols, which is basically to nuke Asteroid M. And he's like, please, just give me some time, I can deal with this, because Magneto's the only hope of reversing the problem. So that conversation didn't go very far. And they go to Muir Island, get their old outfits, because a lot of theirs are wrecked. There's a little joke at the expense of the 2000s Fox X-Men movies, where Cyclops gives Cable an outfit, and he looks at him and is like, well, what'd you expect? Black leather? And so if you've seen the first X-Men movie, you'll get the joke. So they, like I said, they split up, and Xavier's plan B, if they can't reason with Magneto, is to knock off his helmet and to use his powers to take over Magneto's powers to fix the problem. So it gets to the point that feels like he's forced to do that. And so he starts doing that, but then Cyclops gets the message from Jean, knows that they haven't taken out Bastion yet, and he's the nexus that controls the Prime Sentinels. If they don't take him out, the Prime Sentinels will all come back online and go about, doing their dirty deeds. So he uses his optic blast to stop Xavier, and that's when our Magneto's just kind of like, all right, the hell with this, and puts his helmet onto Xavier's head so that Xavier's powers can't leave. Scott gets a message from Jean where it sounds like she died fighting Cable, and it looks like Forge and Storm potentially go down as well. So then up in space, Magneto's doing his thing, and Wolverine has finally had enough and stabs him in the back. And so, as someone else put it, we get to see that this is not the 90s cartoon on Fox anymore. You see his claws sticking out of the front with blood on them and everything. Like he stabbed him through the back. And just like in the Fatal Attraction storyline, that's when Magneto's like, all right, this feud is over. Throws him up against the wall and uses his powers to tear the adamantium out of him. And that's where the episode ends. And so a lot of stuff happens there. A lot of things go down. There aren't a ton of cameos. It ends on a cliffhanger on all the fronts, because it's the penultimate episode. But well written, everything falls within the plots that we've established in the show. The bits that it borrows from the comics, like Asteroid M, the whole Fatal Attractions thing. They had already played out one version of those events in the cartoon, so Magneto doesn't have a ton of followers here, the Acolytes. Rogue kind of plays the role of Colossus, joining the other side and everything. And she had reasons, just like Colossus did. So, you have a lot of that. Everything seems to be in character. Xavier with his weak ass. Here's why I left Magneto in charge. Like, I don't know. It'd be really nice if we got like an actual, like, hey, how did you really think that was all going to pan out? And, but we're not going to. So, overall, great episode. Just like all the others so far. It's on point. If you're watching through, like I said, it ends on a kind of a cliffhanger. But if it's the second last episode, you expect that because it's a 3-part finale. So, episode 10 is excellent though, and I will get to that in the next video. So, let me know what you guys think. If you've been following along, look forward to the summation at the end of all this, where I talk about just kind of overarching view of things, where I think things might be going, where things are obviously going, because I'll talk about it in the season 10 episode. But yeah, so let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But remember, welcome to the X-Men. Hope you survive the experience.